All right, so let's get going. My name is Elizabeth Killingsworth. I'm Associate Dean of SMU Libraries and Director of Fondren Library, and want to welcome all of you to the session. We're very excited that you're all here and grateful to you for joining us. This is an exciting session about integrating the library into online instruction. And I'm going to, first of all, let you know that if you haven't attended any of these sessions yet, you are going to be on mute the whole time, so you won't be able to talk. But if you scroll to the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A section where you can ask questions. My job will be to monitor those questions and interrupt these guys, Jonathan and Megan, who are going to introduce themselves in just a few minutes. So we'll answer questions that way. I'll be the moderator. It would be great if you would use the Q&A section. If you happen to use the chat, I'll keep an eye over there, but it's much easier if it's in one spot. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan and Megan to start the show.
Sure. All right. So first we should kind of talk about who we are. So first, specifically, we're Megan and Jonathan. So I'll start with, I'm the undergraduate success librarian. So I work predominantly a lot with first-year students and thinking about the ways the library can make, undergrad successful both in and outside the classroom. So that's kind of my role.
And I am the head of information literacy and also subject librarian for, and I won't list it all right now, but it's several of the communication and social subject areas, social sciences. And so my job is I lead a team of librarians in really delivering, high-level support for research instruction. What I wanted to communicate to you is we have people with various specializations, both in pedagogy and in subject-specific information practices. Many of you are used to working with your subject librarian, and behind the scenes, we work as a team. And so really you will have access to specializations of all of us across our whole team of librarians.
Yeah, I mean, for example, with DISC, a bunch of librarians chipped in so that we can definitely do a lot of things with teaching. That's part of our specialization, is that we think a lot about how we teach research skills. So what can we teach? This is a good question. So we kind of split it up into two different things on how to think about what we can teach. One, we can think about how to think about information. We can teach how to think about information conceptually. So the other side that we sort of think is the application of that knowledge and skills to solve specific information problems. So if I were to make an analogy, it would kind of be kind of healthy eating and cooking. So we can absolutely teach your students how to kind of make a meal in one way, a healthy meal. But we think it's also really important that they understand the concepts of like nutrition and what eating healthy is like. So you take that to the information side, the conceptual parts that we teach are the ACRL framework of information literacy. This is the kind of stuff that librarians nerd out with. It has 6 frames. These are basically things that when you kind of understand them, it changes the way you think about information. And these are things that we kind of all get, but students sometimes they struggle with them or they don't get them. I'm not going to go through all 6 of these, but let's say, for example, scholarship is conversation. When you get that an academic article doesn't sit in isolation from all the other things that are written about the subject, that fundamentally changes the way you read an article, how you think about using it, and its application. All of these things mean a lot to us, and if I had a couple of drinks, I'd go on for a long time about any of these and say that they're very important. But that's kind of the things that we sort of base our way of teaching on. So those are the concepts. The second part is the application of knowledge. So these can be things like what databases might be really effective for their learning, or the specific thing that they're trying to do. Some strategic searching techniques, so Boolean stuff searching or keyword searching, or thinking conceptually about how you would search using subject terms, stuff like that, as necessary related to the problem they're trying to solve. And the last part is discipline-specific consideration, which I think is a really important part. We look at this, we can see how there are patterns across each discipline that kind of look the same, but we wouldn't expect you guys to think that way. You're experts within your discipline. So we have to be knowledgeable about the way you're thinking about information in your context. So I think that's one of the things we make sure that we're trying to do. We try to match up what we do with how the class is sort of thinking about information. And we try to be really adaptable to work with every class. on their terms. That's me too. All right, so how do we adapt this from to learning environment? So this is kind of our table of contents. This is what we're going to kind of cover about, since we teach those types of things, what can we do online? So we can do things like subject and course guides. We can, construct Canvas modules. We are constructing Canvas modules. Adding librarians to Canvas pages, that's something that's been effective for many of our librarians in the past. Redesigning research assignments, so even beyond just the in-class instruction, how we think about what students are doing with research. And then offering flexible student and research support services, both the instructors and students. So those are the kind of 5 things that we're going to kind of talk about today.
Okay, so subject and course guides. In essence, librarians build what we call research guides, and they will have librarian recommended resources and support for how to think about finding things. In essence, the library website is complicated, and finding information across, the internet as well is complicated. And so we take specific topics and subjects and build a sort of a platform for students to be able to see what kind of information resources are available to me around this topic. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples here in a minute. But when and why you might use them, one of the big reasons is if you want to introduce students or help connect students to discipline-specific resources or topic-specific resources. We also build custom course guides. So if you have a course that has specialized research needs, a very specific research project that you want to offer, an extra level of support for the students trying to do that work, you can contact your subject librarian and we will build a custom course guide. So let's look at a few examples. Oh, wait, hang on, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good.
Go to the next slide for a second.
So you want to see the where they exist in Canvas?
Yeah. So our guides actually connect into your Canvas course, and you can see here, this is an anthropology course, and if the students click on Library Help, it will then directly connect them to a subject guide, which is the default. But if you choose to have a course guide built, we can directly connect that so that the course guide would show up instead in this spot. And so that's that anthropology guide connected to a course. Here is the full anthropology guide. And I'll point out at the top, we also create what we call topic guides that get into topics that are, usually researched around that subject area. So for example, there's one on medical and health research that really helps explode out how you might, and you can click on that, Jonathan.
Yep.
That digs down even more into how you might research that specific topic. And then we'll just show you a couple examples of course guides that were built.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. So this was for an anthropology course with some recommended resources specific to the assignment the students were doing. It looks like it was environmental in nature. So, and then there was a class that was done on evaluating information that, we were able to have specific in-class activities in the course guide serve for that. And then just one other quick example. This is actually one of my courses that I worked with, that they were researching the law around kind of very current things with data and the internet. And so specific help for the students on that course.
Yeah, and so some of this is kind of the recipe type thing that we were talking about before, that it helps them sort of solve the specific information problem, but it would complement a lot of the other things that we're talking about that we would also offer as instruction and learning as well.
And the attempt with these is not just to give students links to click on, but also help give some a little bit of instruction about this what you can expect and how you might use it, just little ways of shaping how they can think about the information that they're using.
Yep. So we can also do Zoom and other online videos. So what can we do? We can do stuff like this. Synchronous and asynchronous virtual classroom instruction. So we did both. We did both during this semester, and we did a lot of different types of instruction. that went into that. And we really adapt it. We try to adapt to the classroom setting and trying to work with the instructors to figure out what is going to work best for how they run their class and how that is managed. So it's not like a one-size-fits-all situation. There's a whole, we like to talk about with the instructor, what are the typical norms that your class has, what are the expectations, what are you seeing as learning outcomes? These are things that we want to sort of take into consideration so that we can design the thing that's actually going to integrate fully within your classroom. So when and why might we meet with your students? Well, we might demo a database or demo some search strategies. We could create a video that does that. We could also do that live. We could discuss important information literacy concepts. So I'll show you an example here in a second of a more conceptual type video, which explains how to think about choosing a topic that sets up well for research. And then the last thing we do is provide opportunities for guided practice with students as they search. So we've done things, breakout sessions in Zoom. As they're real-time searching, they can get help because we can talk until we're blue in the face until they start searching. There are some problems that they may not fully realize what they are until they experience them. And being there in that moment, getting students started, getting them started in the right direction prevents a lot of other bad research outcomes from happening, because we can head them off at the pass quickly whenever they start heading down a path that we sort of have some concerns about. So let me show you some examples of some of the things that we did this semester. So one of the first things we did is one of our instructors created a playlist of videos on just how to set up a RefWorks account. So this is very much like walking them through the process. It can be a complicated sort of process. This offered them an opportunity to set that up and then how to do some particular functions with citation management, for their research project. So this would be more of the, how-to guides, demoing specific interfaces and showing them where to click and stuff like that. If you want to contrast that, I made a video for one of the DIS classes, and this is a more conceptual video. So I'm trying to get across the point that topics are developed, not chosen, that you have to think about them. And what I'm trying to say with this guy, with his head down and the anchors and stuff like that, is that if you get stuck, you think of your topic very narrowly, you have to write the perfect research paper to execute the topic most effectively. But if you stay open, there are lots of different types of research papers that you can write that can be very effective. And if you think about how the process by which you develop that topic, that sets you up to research more effectively. So you can see that some of that is getting students in the right mindset so that they can be set up to research in a way. If they think that they just have to find the right answer, I think that gets them sort of stuck. I also have like a small quiz over here that complemented the video. So that's a thing that we can do, is sort of create some sort of small quiz that complements some of the learning objects that we create.
Okay, Canvas modules is a new area that we have just started embarking into, and this is something that we've been planning for a long time. And with the move to teaching online, we have been ramping up quickly. So in essence, we are creating modules, ready-made modules that can be imported into your course. The idea is that it's introductory content, simple quizzes just to kind of check for understanding. And then there's also going to be included for the instructor suggestions for further learning. And of course, you can always contact your subject librarian in order to help facilitate some of those further learning kind of activities. So when you might use those, I think, given this online life that we're all living, I think they work really well for flipped instruction. And so when a librarian works with a class, when we were in person, it's much easier to look over a student's shoulder and see what they're doing on their computer, and having to deal with all these multiple screens. Having a little bit of work that the students do before they get there is really going to help make the instruction that we're doing in person, or not in person, synchronously more effective. The other thing that we see as being useful for this is classes in which you have students with a wide variety of experience with research. And this is something we see a lot, where you may have some students who have never done a research project before. You may have others who have done 4 projects and they've had sessions with a librarian and they could help lead a session on how to do it. And so offering the students a module for those who maybe have no experience so far, so that they can kind of upskill quickly and maybe get a little bit all on the same, at the same level as much as possible with the rest of the class.
I would also add in here, when they're reviewing these concepts, they work really well as almost a diagnostic tool. If you're seeing students struggling with a certain type of activity within this, that would be a place in which you could contact the librarian and sort of saying, this is what I'm seeing with students, and we can sort of come up with an intervention. Or if there's one student who seems to be struggling with that, we can start to think about ways in which we can help that student catch up with everyone else in the class.
So we have, we were gonna.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
On me. I'm a poor driver.
So what we have available as of 10 o'clock last night, there's a module for evaluating news media and one for writing with sources for graduate students. The ones we have upcoming very soon, finding news articles actually will be in there by the end of the week. Information ethics for undergraduates will be up there very quickly as well. And then we have plans on building searching for information and some citation specific ones in the works for in the very near future. So let's show you where you can get to these.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right.
So
starting over here.
Yeah, from Canvas, you're going to go to the Commons.
Yeah. I'm already here, but I'll click on it
Already
anyway.
there, yeah. If you search for SMU libraries, we have it tagged so that all our stuff will show up. And you'll notice the blue branding of SMU libraries. And if you click into evaluating news, or this one's, sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It gives you a preview of what kind of content you can expect from that. If you click on details, we're always going to include the learning outcomes and the length of time, rough length of time it might take for a student to use this. So, and once you import this into your course, you can completely customize this. We have it, feel free to use it, change it if you want. You can, set the quizzes so that they're actually graded for your course if you so desire. Yeah, and then, yes.
Suggested activities, just things that we can do. What is academic writing? Things like that, to continue to build off the themes that are on there.
Yeah.
All right, heading back.
We are going to be looking and soon for feedback from faculty, and a lot of these we're planning on creating customized, even customized for a discipline. So if you have ideas of things you would like to see from a Canvas module, please let your subject librarian know, or you can email info@online@smu.edu.
Yeah, and I think that, as Megan said, this is an area in which we are just now getting into. So we're learning our capacity and learning how to do things. And our goal is to build a nice team and a workflow that helps us produce these at point of need, but also produce what we think is pretty high quality work and ready to integrate.
So could we pause for just a second? We have a question. Does it allow us to have them take a test on these?
Yes, so for these modules, they're broken out into sections, and at the end of each section is a very short quiz, like 2 or 3 questions, and the intention of that is just, did you read it? And then at the end of every module, there's a summary quiz over the entire module. That's a bit longer.
Suzanne Schultz suggests a module on how to search the databases.
Yes, so that searching for information module that we're planning will include how to think about searching databases, how to think about searching online, and some kind of broader concepts around how to think about search.
And
we're definitely planning on that.
That's wonderful. What was the email address you suggested they contact?
It's infolitonline@smu.edu.
Can you throw it into the chat just to?
Yeah, I can.
And this one. So, and in addition, if you're thinking about other ways in which you can evaluate some of this kind of stuff, we've got some discussion questions or things that might be good follow-ups within that. So, and if there are things to say, I really like the module and I'll have them take the quizzes, but I'd like to do more with that and really integrate it into some of the work that they're doing in the class in a more of a way. Again, that's a place where reach out to the librarians, and we're happy to help design something, which we'll talk about here in a second, I think. Is that, are there other things that we should address, Elizabeth?
We have Richard, quizzes, tests. How about performance assessments? Do a piece of writing, share with others, and get feedback editing. So,
Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that I think you would find in the suggested activities for faculty, and we're always taking ideas on how to add more of those things. We'll continue to update those as we think of really good ideas, but yeah, that's the idea, is that the modules will kind of cover some of the exposure stuff, but we can always talk about ways in which they can be further integrated into the classroom.
And you know, like we said, we're just starting this, but I mean, these are going to become, like, hopefully really robust open educational resources for SMU. So things like the assignment that's in the Writing with Sources actually was contributed by Simmons graduate school faculty. If there are things that we can gather from faculty, and that's a way of us sharing as a campus ideas for how to work with students around those topics. Yep. So there will be regular updates on those, and that's why we encourage people, if you use them, you know, complete the form so that we have your contact information, so that as we continue to update them, we'll let you know that there's new content in there. Yeah,
there'll be like different versions of, we'll be remixing them and revisiting them. I think that's kind of our intention. Other things we can do with Canvas. So you can add your librarians to a Canvas course page. So this is worked in the past. And so what can we do within that? So I've been a part of a couple Canvas pages, and it definitely increases our interaction. So one, it's like point of need. So say you have a set of course readings. Me knowing what those course readings are when I'm working with a student, a lot of working with information is about making connections between pieces of information. If I know what they're starting from, it helps me to reference back to that. You can say, well, you read something like this. How does the new thing that you found, connect back? It can reduce your administrative effort. Sometimes if you're feeling like you're just answering, well, how do I find research, or you're having to do that kind of stuff, I think that is a place where a librarian can help lift the load there. I mean, that's some of the things we like to do. So it can oftentimes be what we would do on the desk, but really customized in the context of your class. So we would have a frame of reference for a lot of the students that we'd be working with. So when you might do that, recommended for fully online courses with significant research assignments. So if they feel like there's going to need a lot of help as they go through that process, I think that's a really good place. Discussion boards, stuff like that can help. So that's kind of our idea within there. So it's just another way to sort of bring the expertise of the librarian into your classroom. All right, so the other thing we can help with is sort of redesigning research assignments. So this might not be something you would normally associate the library with, but we kind of see some of the challenges that face student research starting at the design level of the assignments. And I think we have some really great insights about where student learning is happening. When we're working with students, we see some behaviors that maybe you wouldn't see in the classroom because they're, we don't give them a grade. We're working with them as they're doing research. There's some things that, I'll tell you, this semester, the students have told me a lot of stuff about what they're feeling, and it's great to be able to close the loop back on some of that stuff to help make better assignments and set them up to be more successful. So what can we help with? So we can do a thing called test drive an assignment. This is a thing that I do with a lot of the first year writing, is I run through it like an undergrad would, and then I run through it like a librarian would, and I try to figure out what might be some potential trouble spots. So classic example, you require a book for a research assignment, but we have maybe 3 books on that topic. I can say that's going to be hard because somebody's going to check those books out, and then what's going to happen with the rest of the students? That's a pretty extreme case, but there are things to say, well, the information is kind of organized in this way, or navigating that database is actually kind of difficult, and that's a thing that maybe you might want to make sure that you bring in a librarian for, because there's a high chance that students could get stuck. We can also diagnose research challenges where students are likely to get stuck. So there are some patterns that students develop. And then last, to help develop authentic learning scenarios. So we find that if it looks like real research, the learning transfers a lot better to future types of research environments, and we can help think about what those might look when you might use this. You can use this anytime. You can have the assignment out and say, this is what can I have help? But the more time we have, the more we're able to sort of make some significant changes to the assignment. And this can be ongoing. I always like to sort of say this is incremental progress, that we test something out, we see how it works, and then we continue to build. If you just want to brainstorm ideas, I'd like the students to do something like this, but I don't know how to design something like that. That's something we can help with. And then if you just are observing some stagnant learning from students, they say, I think their potential is more than what I'm seeing in this assignment. How can we make sure that we can see that potential and help them grow? These are all things that I think are opportunities to sort of bring in a librarian and a fresh set of eyes. I think we can oftentimes see things that others might not. So I'm going to go to really quick, like, I'm going to run through a scenario in which I can, like, how we might diagnose research problems. And I'm going to do this really quick. There's a lot of boxes on here. So this is like for a typical research paper, academic research paper that uses scholarly sources. I've sort of broken it down into stages that a student needs to cross through to be able to complete it effectively. So they are establishing a preliminary topic, developing a knowledge base through background information, refining their topic and developing research strategies, finding, considering, evaluating relevant resources, synthesizing all of that information they just found into something that means something to them, and then creating a final product out of that new understanding. So let's say a student skips or struggles with one of these steps. We then can think about what behaviors we might see from that student if they struggle with that. So on establishing a preliminary topic, you see they get fixated, and this happens all the time. Am I choosing the best topic? And they just topic hop all over the place and sort of saying, I'm trying to find the best one that works because that's what I'm scared of. This is the one that I think students most often skip. They just say, I have to have X number of sources. So they just jump and grab those sources, and they forget to build a knowledge base. And so this is where you see very often the using sources superficially, that they just find a quote and chuck it into their paper. It means that they have a knowledge base that really focuses in on that. And there are a lot more on here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are things in which we sort of see things. And they, in this, through this view, you can see where even plagiarism can be an outcome of not really going through the process. And so if you're seeing lots of plagiarism, that's a sign to sort of say, well, let's look at this assignment, and are there ways in which we can kind of set them up to be more successful. So the last thing I'll say about this is, you guys can see this, right? Okay. This is an assignment that we kind of co-wrote together, and I just wanted to show a couple things that we sort of did. Is I made comments on ways in which we can try to improve the assignment. So this is one of the ways in which we do it. So for example, I kind of talked about introducing useful concepts. The idea that, oh, it's a literature review. Well, what does a literature review do? How will I know that I've done them well? Why am I even doing this? These kinds of things are the kinds of questions that I'm sort of seeing, and it gives us a way in which we can sort of make sure that we're setting students up to be successful. And so I gave comments throughout this assignment, and I think it's ended up working really well for the students. And I kind of like to use this one as an example of what that process might actually look like. It can also just be, we get on Zoom and talk about what you want to do and think about and co-write together. It can be like that too. It's a pretty adaptable sort of process.
So we have one question. Are these services for research assignments available for GIS resources?
I would say yes, but I don't want to commit, somebody who's not here to work that, to work that I would do. I would be happy to work with any kind of assignment. I've done digital humanities, GIS stuff in previous jobs, like as far as assignment design goes. We can at least talk about what issues there might be within that, and I would want to bring in the GIS librarians.
I can commit the librarian to that.
Okay, there we go.
I think, and that's kind of like what I was talking about up front. We have your assigned subject librarians, but we have different specializations and like across our team of librarians. And what I was going to say is we can work together to get you the support you need.
Well, and thinking through something something like that, I mean, certainly there are software considerations and specific skills with software that you say, is that really where the transfer is going to be, or do we really want to teach more conceptual stuff? And so a lot of assignments like that are focusing on what learning outcomes you actually want to get students out of that, and then offering scaffolding for the rest of the types of things that's like, well, I don't really care if they know exactly how to use this software. I just want them to get the ideas of GIS, or if that they actually need to know ArcGIS, and like that's the learning outcome. And we can focus, because that when you have a limited amount of time, you have to sit and focus your learning. So that's one of the things to really consider. And we can think about how we might set people up, and that can even be setting up resources. So like cleaning data would take forever. If we can find clean data, that sets students up to be more successful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So flexible student research support. So this is helping students on sort of as a point of need. So what support do we offer? So as of right now, we've got consultations and we've got chat and ask us. We've also got our email services. We've expanded our chat hours to make sure that we're accommodating all of the time zone considerations and just being available for students. One of the biggest things that I got from students is that finding motivation and feeling supported because they're lacking their friend group around them, that social dynamic that makes them feel motivated. They're struggling with that. So we try to make sure that we're offering that. So sometimes these consultations are just chances for them to just get their ideas out of their head to someone else who's not necessarily always in their class. And so we sort of see them as that. So when we tell students to use them. So quick answers are going to be much more for chat. So we have now a proactive chat. So if they're on the library website, they'll get prompted that if they need help, and they feel free to chat in. And that's definitely increased the number of interactions we've had. But that's a really good place to sort of know that this is a place that they can go to if they're struggling with a known item or something like that. That's a place they can get help. Academic coaching, so how to think about doing that kind of research. We do a lot of that kind of stuff, especially in the consultations. And then certainly in-depth research planning. We want to make sure that students have a plan and a way to go through something like that. So to kind of show you that, I'm going to show you a document that I use and then I have my interns kind of use whenever they're doing a consultation. We have this research plan. We talk about who they met with. We kind of diagnose where they are within the process. We sort of confirm the reasons for the consultation. We define what our session goals might be through our interview. And then we'll kind of take notes about what keywords might work really well or what databases are working really well. And then we try to give them tangible next steps. Do this, this, and this. And it's not, within these things, we're not always trying to solve the entirety of the research project. It's to kind of get them to the next phase or step. Within research, unless you've experienced it fully, it's kind of hard to prepare people until they're in the middle of it, and it can be incremental. So these are things that they can continue to come back with and that they have a partner. I also think it's really important within research is you want students to take risks with their assignments. And if they feel supported, students are more likely to pick a really interesting topic or something that they might really care about what the answer is, instead of just taking the safe topic because they think there's going to be information on it. This helps them sort of take those.
And I think to build on what Jonathan is saying, one of our goals as librarians is really to help students triage between us and the professor. Like, it's really about creating connections and getting students, sometimes we get asked questions that I'll refer back to the professor. We look at the assignment and talk about where they're running into problems and how they can connect better back with you guys as well.
Yeah, and so I wanted to show really quick ways in which on the library page they can do that. So that Ask Us, you saw me probably clicking on it. That was the prompting us. They can just sit in and start chatting with a librarian. It's the same help they would get if we were on campus and they would go to the desk. The same people are answering that. So I think it's a really good way to get them a lot of some great help that way. So within research help here on the main Fondren page, you can see schedule an appointment, which is going to give us give them a chance to find the librarian that works best for them, and sort of schedule a consultation. So here's Evelyn, social sciences librarian. We can take a look at what her availability might be. So here's our appointments that are online, and they can just pick a time and have that time that works for them, and meet for an hour with Evelyn to get help. So this is a really good chance to have some really great intervention early on and have them have help. And you can see people stay pretty available. So I think it's something that they can rely on.
And probably if you're using course guides and research guides, they're going to be going through the research guide. So all of the guides have connections back to the subject specialist.
Yes, and so it looks like this here, and so it's integrated into the page, which I think we want them to come get help, and we want them to feel supported. And I will say that the more you guys mention that in the class that the librarians are there for you, the more it offers legitimacy to the help that we're providing, and it makes them feel like, oh yeah, that is a valid way to sort of be successful in this class. It's not just a thing that I'm doing out on my own. It's a way that's sort of approved by the instructor or something that the instructor is recommending. All right.
So just to sum up, so one of the big ideas that we've been talking about is this use of information outside the classroom, and really students learn more when they do that intentionally, when they connect their course content with information that they found outside the classroom. So as librarians, we're committed to facilitating those connections, and that goes across a span of activities. Information literacy is highly contextual. It really varies from discipline to discipline. SMU Library supports all disciplines across the university. And so we have a team of really passionate librarians who really believe in what we do. And because of that, we are committed that no matter where classes are, we are here to help you and help your students.
Yeah, I would say it's a really exciting time to be a librarian because the world has changed, the information world has changed so much, and that institutionally there probably wasn't something that was teaching this, but it's become such an important part of of how to be successful both in and outside of college, and that's kind of our sort of specialization, and we want to make sure that students are making those connections. All right.
So
questions.
Let's open it up to any questions anyone might have. You have that question and answer option at the bottom of your screen. Jonathan and Megan are just two of a plethora of librarians who are very excited to help, and we often work as teams. So, you know, our GIS specialist librarian would work with Megan and Jonathan on assignment design. So we have librarians in the business library, law library, Bridwell, Hammond Arts Library, Fondren. We all work very closely together. So we really do have a lot of specialization and knowledge to offer. Any questions anyone has? You have contact information there for Megan, Jonathan, even me, if you'd like to. Even though all I did was introduce people, I'm happy to help. And we'll definitely need your feedback on the Canvas content that is being created, what has been created and will be in the future. A question, how do we book a consult for assignment design, etc.?
Great question. One, you can just email me and we can set up a time that works. If you wanted to sort of book time with me, you can book it the way the students book it, to that same sort of thing. But honestly, like, my schedule stays pretty open. We could just book something through Outlook and then meet via Zoom and do it that way. It's probably the easiest thing.
The other thing is, especially if you're used to working with your subject librarian, you can always, anything that the library supports or does, you can contact your subject librarian, and then we will work behind the scenes to pull together the team that can help do what you need done. So
yep.
if you're comfortable with that, but I did make a note. We just launched our new website, and I thought of that and made a note as we're talking that we need to have a place on the website for.
So it would be on this info
exactly
website
that.
Right,
so I'm gonna work on that, but. So you can contact Jonathan, or you can contact your subject librarian if
right. And we may ask for materials, and it's hard to do one size fits all, because some people just have ideas of, like, I'd like to do something that's kind of like this. But
so another question, well, a comment. Suzanne Schultz, yes, do a module section on WorldCat searches, ATLA, all the key databases in detail, not in general. Wow. Well, that'd be a lot.
That's a good point. I mean, this is where the contextual part matters, because in detail would mean contextual to what students are doing. And I think that we want to make sure that we're doing something that fits with where the students are on that. Yep.
I coordinate summer programs for high school youth engineering STEM camps. Are these courses available for your services? Do we serve high school youth engineering STEM camp?
Yes. I meet with high school students often to talk about that. I think it's actually a really important thing, having research skills and having these things as you head into college. And so I'd be happy to personally work with them or create content that works for what they're trying to do.
Lydia, I'm very excited about the Canvas modules and can't wait to integrate them into my course. I might need help with some of the tech side of things. So could we get a help session in person over Zoom with Canvas?
Yes, I mean, it'd be the same way that we would almost do assignment design stuff to say like, all right, here's what we have, and let's talk about how you're thinking about your course. So, and we can think about what we would do to integrate it that way.
The other thing, just to highlight, is that we work closely with Addie Tolliver in CT. Mm-hmm. And so if you have like technical questions about Canvas, Addie is always available to book appointments. She's very aware of what we're doing. In fact, she's in those courses looking at them along with us. So we're trying to really make sure we have cohesion between what the library is doing and what CTE does to support Canvas.
Yes.
All right. I think we've answered all the questions, and we're about out of time. I'd like to thank Megan and Jonathan, and especially the attendees of this session for coming. This session is being recorded, and the slides will be online as well. And I'm sure as an attendee, you'll get that as well. Anything else before we close? No?
Thank you, everybody.
Very informative. Awesome. So
that's about the best compliment you can get as a librarian. Very informative is what we're striving for.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much for attending. Bye-bye.